Good morning, everybody. Good morning. So, yeah, last night I was watching the History Channel and Ancient Aliens Unclassified, the bonus material, because, my husband and I are home together. Sometimes we'll watch TV together. And since I sort of took over the TV yesterday and was just binge watching Matt LeBlanc in one of his episode series that he did after he did Friends, it was time for my husband to watch some TV. And so we watched the Ancient Aliens. And I don't usually watch Ancient Aliens all the time because I'm just like, but it was actually very interesting. It was it was about how man came to be, or at least what their research and their science and stuff that they've done to then have them say, okay, here's a theory of like where the Neanderthals came from, where all these people came from. And I was, Googling like Neanderthals last night. I'm like, of course, humanity, since we don't know everything and we don't know all the laws, so we're going to make up all these different stories of what we think, because we've really, when you look at just in our current history books, we have an idea. Well, we have enough information from at least a generation ago to be like, okay, here's some of the mistakes, here's some of the revolutionary science that we've created because of our research, and here we are today. Then you go back, 300 or 400 years, and now we're getting into somebody's perception of some of the evidence that was found. Then you go back to then like millions or thousands, like 40,000 years ago, and then it's just like, okay, this is the beginning of man, because our society, which I've always wondered how is it that only 300 or 400 years we've come this far as technology and just advancement of thought. I mean, it's only a couple hundred years, and humans have been around for generations and eons and eons. And I'm like, there's something, and I never really like could put my finger on it, but I knew something was funny. And I thought about this as a kid. I'm like, or even like 15 years ago, I'm like, humanity has been around for like so long. There's lost civilizations. And then now this generation, this society seems to be having all of these advanced thoughts in technological progression and medicine, revolutionary medicine. And I'm just like, there's something funny going on. And then I'm thinking, okay, and then I'm watching the Neanderthal stuff, and I'm like, I wonder, since they seem to be close to humans, but they're not exactly close to who we are today, and we're headed towards major mutations. I mean, you're seeing mutations in the public right now. There's some major mutations in a certain set of people, and I don't want to totally, I don't want it to insult some really mutated people out there, but there are specific diseases out there that really would almost seem like it was, a major mutation from way back 40,000 years ago. Okay? And there's other people that no, they don't look like anything like a Neanderthal. But there's some people in our society that look like Neanderthals. And it makes you wonder. And then we hear about that there's actually some Neanderthal DNA in our current population today. Well, what is Neanderthal DNA? What is that? Oh, what is culture? Culture is mutations. You see, all of the regional mutations really describe the culture. Because when you get your DNA, your 23andMe, and it comes back where you're like part Italian, part black, part Asian, part Irish, they're actually looking at your mutations. Because if you actually fixed all the mutations in our society, you wouldn't then be able to figure out what region they came from. So, why, if you actually did a DNA test on me, which, I'm not going to do, but if you did one, I could be coming from China because China invaded Vietnam at some point. Okay? A lot of you have, a lot of your ancestors did mix in, and then you have all these mutations from all of your different ancestors. So culture and ethnicity really come from mutations. But that's so deep for some people that I mean, Kevin might go into that or he might not. And I'm not looking for him to do that because I'm not trying to that's not my focus when on the next book, but it's something to explore. So then I'm looking at what Neanderthals. I'm like, because the History Channel has like all these stories about how the aliens came down and taught the humans, and then the Neanderthals somehow came in the mix somewhere. And I'm just like, okay, let me just look up Neanderthals just to see what definition, what somebody said out there. So this is from Wikipedia, which obviously isn't like the best source in the world, but it still is a cross section of popular thought. And even though it's not like so hard science, it is still a cross section of popular thought. So the proportion of Neanderthal inherited genetic material is about 1 to 4%, and then later refined to 1.5 to 2.1%. It is suggested that 20% of the Neanderthal DNA survived in modern humans, notably expressed in the skin, hair, and diseases of modern people. So I'm thinking, now the thing with all these civilizations that have been lost over eons and eons and eons ago, we hear about Atlantis, we hear about the Mayans, the Incas, the Aztecs, you hear about all the different civilizations that came and went, the fall, the rise of the Roman Empire and the fall of the Roman Empire, the rise of this civilization, the Greek civilization, and the fall of the Greek civilization. You hear about rise and fall of civilizations all over the place. And humanity is on a timeline, okay? But it's a forever, it's infinite. Just pretend that this pen goes forever this way, and there is no beginning and there's no end, and it goes this way. See, life, there is no beginning and ending, because life and death just tell you the mechanisms of what the organism goes through if it gets exposed to other elements, or just the manifestations of or the affects of the environment. How does the environment impact, good morning, Donna, this, in an entity? And some entities will live, and then it will die, and then they reproduce, and they live again. And that's just the cycle. It's continuous, it's infinite. Life and death is infinite, because it is when you don't fall, when things happen. So not even just not even falling laws, maybe there's an upset of homeostasis. So there's some upset of homeostasis, like let's say the dinosaurs, and then all of those, let's say meteors came through and then made those, and then changed the environment, changed the homeostasis of the earth, and then the dinosaurs couldn't breed anymore. Maybe there was a difference now in the atmosphere, and that's why the dinosaurs are gone, okay? So that's an upset of homeostasis. So with man, okay, man's on this continuous, infinite timeline. And we only know a freaking drop in the bucket of man's history, a drop in the bucket. So maybe the Neanderthals are what we right now are facing, should we stay on the trajectory that we're staying. Because we're looking at each generation of children more mutated than the next. And what's going to happen is that will we turn into Neanderthal? That could have been the Atlantis. Those Neanderthals, okay, those Neanderthals could have been Atlantis. It could have been any of those lost civilizations that we know nothing about anymore. We hear about, but we know nothing really about. And maybe those Neanderthals were because they violated the laws of the body, and then they went back to their primal state, because they kept dealing with and reproducing on mutations. So maybe we're looking at the Neanderthals as our future if we don't stop what we're doing. Because eventually, like the humans didn't eradicate the Neanderthals. Somehow somebody woke up in between it and figured out how to, and maybe what it is that with the flood, and you can look at the Bible and all this stuff, and you can figure out, well, the flood didn't totally eradicate every human, okay? Noah's people and all of his animals were on the ark, and there were still, areas of which weren't totally flooded and didn't wash away. But there was a lot of people that did die, obviously, back in the flood days. So maybe there's a certain population that still kept some of the more advanced agricultural customs. And then there are some that decided that they didn't want to do that. And I'm thinking, like, you know what? With the thing with chili juice, maybe the ones that stayed like modern and were growing crops and everything, modern man today, they were like the jelly juicers, and the ones that said, hey, the crops are stupid, it's dumb, whatever, you guys are all crazy, they turned into the Neanderthals. Okay, that's my story around that. But it makes sense, because when you're on this timeline, humans really were meant to be a specific way. And mutations, because I've seen people that look like Neanderthals in our society today. I've seen people like, you know what? This guy looks like he's a Neanderthal. I mean, the look, and there are some cultures that may even exemplify look like Neanderthals, and they're really indigenous. Like some of these, that are like, maybe say the Aborigines, they kind of look Neanderthal in a way. Now, there's not being an insult, but when you look at other cultures that don't have advanced technology and advanced medicine and playing with the hormones, and they just stick with eating their meat and eating their vegetables, and it's perfectly fine, but they're not mining salt and bringing salt into the equation. They're not understanding chemistry, and so they live purely off-grid. So I'm thinking like the off-gridders, the ones that are like, oh yeah, fuck society, fuck everybody, they're going to be the Neanderthals. They're going to go back to the primal state and go live in a cave and cook their meat. But maybe they eventually they degrade over a period of time, and they reproduce on mutations that they don't even grow vegetables anymore. They just go after the meat, because that's the most primal instinct. Go after meat, kill it, eat it, like a dog, like an undomesticated dog. And so, maybe we are looking at not so much the beginning of mankind with the Neanderthals, but the ending of another mankind, the ending of another civilization when they kept violating the laws. Because no matter what, humanity as a whole, the life cycle of humanity is no different than the life cycle of a human being. So humanity as a whole has a life cycle, and that's what the rise and fall of civilization, just like the rise and fall of humans out there. You're born, you get every chance in the world to figure out the laws, and then yes, you reach to a point of maturity, and then you start degrading, and that's because the laws have been violated. So the same thing with humanity as a whole. We have all the opportunity in the world to really just invent something, find the formula, and then but people don't, and then what happens is then humanity then eventually reproduces and keeps reproducing, and then using negative elements to manage all of their mutations, which compounds their mutations. And guess what? They take themselves back to the beginning. Not even to the beginning, really, but to the beginning to us, because we think Neanderthals were the beginning of time. No, they could be the end of another civilization violating the laws. So it takes them back to then the primal state. Not even back to being like invalid. No, they're back to the primal state, because just look at the pictures of the Neanderthals. They look mutated. Then you look at a human that's not mutated. Look at me. Okay? And so, if you look at the old picture of me, you would have said, wow, she's getting the jowly and the heavy, like you could see the fat going over my eyebrows and all this stuff, or my eyelids, and the jowliness. You will see people as they get older start looking more Neanderthalic, because they haven't taken care of the mutations in their body. They keep doing the pills, powder supplements, and cannabis and all this stuff. And so it compounds the mutation. Then they're having children on top of that. And then the kids are even more mutated. And then they're compounding all the mutations, having more kids. But, and then we're going to have some event, like some pandemic, that no antibiotic out there is going to be able to deal with, because you haven't figured out the formula. And then it's just, and I don't know if our society, the New World Order, or our government is anticipating this, and this is why they decided to figure out the New World Order. This is why they decided to go into countries that are so indigenous and try to get them up to speed. Because do we want to have another Neanderthal type where we're having these roving different tribes of people fighting each other and being primal and just stealing and killing and all this stuff? Or do we want to have a more of a civilized society where now we understand science and chemistry the way it was intended, really, truly? We can prolong our life to live indefinitely. We don't have to degrade and die and mutate like we are now. We're dealing with our predecessors, and they have major mutations and major stuff going on. And so I'm looking at the Neanderthals is a warning to us that this is where we're going to end up if we don't get the right formula figured out. And so this is why I've been hounding so much on the cannabis industry, on the holistic industry and the allopathic, though they have a place for people who want shortcuts. But they won't see Neanderthals today. They'll just pass away. But every generation that reproduces on mutations is heading towards that. And right now, humanity is in the middle of its life cycle where it grows and then it degrades. Okay? And that's what right now we're seeing in our current civilization. So we may end up like Atlantis, where one day we're just a memory of, to some other civilization that's trying to now advance itself. So if we don't get the formula now today, then we're going to eventually end up like become a Neanderthal, or what all the points in between. I mean, what's a Neanderthal? What's the other? There's other Homo erectus, Homo this. Because maybe the different Homo. Let me see if I can see Homo erectus, just Homo sapien. We're Homo sapiens. Let's see. Homo erectus. Well, let's see okay, where's it? I want to know what is I don't know, the succession of man? That's how you say it? Succession of man. No, that's not. The different. What would you guys call that? The different genuses of man. I wasn't even thinking of genuses of man. Okay, here we go. Humans. Here we go. Homo. See, why do things come extinct? Because they die off. Extinction comes from that, why giraffes die off? Because there's an outside force, such as Neanderthals in our society, that kill them off. Okay, so we have, here, the Australopithecus, modern humans, let's see, Homo erectus, Homo neanderthals, Homo habilis, Paranthropus, Australopithecus, Pan. Okay. So, okay, here we go. Species: Homo sapiens, Homo erectus, Homo floresiensis, Homo habilis, Homo heidelbergensis, Homo naledi, and Homo neanderthalis. Okay. And so these are in different parts of the world. And of course, you can look at all, if you really study anthropology and everything, and you look at anthropology through the lens of Jilly Juice and the lens of life cycles and then the laws, you'll start seeing another pattern here. Okay. Homo erectus, which is persisted for more than 1 million years and then gradually diverged into a new species by around 500. And so, because when you do J-juice, you're not going to be mutated anymore. You're not, right now, people who are not on J-juice, they're very tunneled. And then what happens is you see people that are very mutated in some areas where you're like, dude, that person's total caveman. Because there are men out there that are like cavemen, and women too, that are total cavemen. And you're like, what the hell? What is something, what's going on with them? And you look at that they're severely mutated, but they still come from our society. It's not like they're some alien, like some people like to think that they're alien. No, it's a mutation. And so we'll have all these stories. If we don't know the laws, we will believe all the stories that we see through scientists who are trying to explain how it is that we as a society, not like 50,000 years ago, but and then try to then figure out, okay, well, how did we come to be? Was the aliens that did this? Was it this that did this? Was it that did this? No, I think humans have always had the potential to be who we are today. And maybe we have people out there that already had forethought, that didn't want indigenous societies to end up to be like a Homo habilis or a Homo erectus or Neanderthal. I mean, that's probably the extreme. Maybe all of those Homo thingies that go all the way from Homo sapien to Neanderthal is then the decline of humanity versus the escalation of humanity or the evolution of humanity. Maybe it's the decline. See, what you do to one side, you can do to the other. I mean, it doesn't. Why do we assume that that oh, how did I say this? I was going to make an example, but I have to think of that one. Yeah, why do we assume that pain is bad? Right? Why are we trying to mitigate pain when we should be embracing the pain and then hopefully we never have to deal with the pain ever again? But no, it's somebody's story that says pain is bad. Take cannabis, take this, take that, take that. Well, what if actually pain is good? It's letting you know that you have to fix something that's broken, but you don't know the formula. But now you know the formula, now you got to stick with it. So who's to say that, the all of those Homo erectus and habilis and whatever Australopithecus, who's to say that isn't like going to be our consequences of violating the laws? We're going to end up like the Neanderthals. So, infinity, like we live in a fractal universe. Life and death is infinite. Life is a consequence and death is a consequence. And if you believe in death, then you will find every which way possible to play with the poisons. Okay. And then, so it's so interesting that those that hate Monsanto, but will smoke a shit ton of weed, those that hate all of the GMO will smoke a shit ton of weed. And then guess what? They're playing with the same elements. It may be configured a little differently just because you have 9 million compound elements to work with, but you're still playing in the negative elements. Okay, so if you are against Monsanto and against all of the GMO and you are actively smoking weed, you're a hypocrite. I'll just tell you that right now. Because we are heading towards a type of Neanderthalic population down the road if we don't fix these crazy ass mutations that are plaguing us because we keep putting our head in the sand playing with poisons. And since you guys are asking for the poisons and you're making a total superficial difference, oh yeah, it's natural versus a lab poison, you really don't get science. You don't understand chemistry. And it shows. And then what happens is you give all of those negative elements to manage your cancer disease and chronic illness. And that's it. You're not doing Jilly Juice, but you're giving all the negative elements to your friends and family. You're contributing to the Neanderthalic trajectory. I won't even say death trajectory because we're going to keep reproducing. That's what's going to happen. So we're going to evolve into, for those that are not on J Juice, you're going to evolve into a Neanderthal down the road, generations down generations. So we're going to see a split in humanity once again. See, history repeats itself. So there's the J juicers, much like the people that did agriculture. Then you have the non-J juicers that play with cannabis, and they're going to be the Neanderthals, and they're going to be the ones that are going to be going back and reproducing, and then going back into the caveman days because they don't want to be part of civilization. Like, oh yeah, the government sucks. All the stories, the government sucks. And so they'll be the off-gridders being like, okay, I'm going to live in a commune away from society. And then they'll be the ones that'll be the Neanderthals. And then you have the modern humans that are growing their crops, and thanks Steve Apples, and growing, all the good stuff, and they're taking in, they're mining the salt, the right salt, they understand chemistry, they figure out the formula, they grow their vegetables and their cabbage and their kale and their fruits and all that stuff. And they understand that everything has a place. The onions, the garlic, all that have a place. But since you're so mutated, you're going to have to be discriminatory. Because right now you guys are so discriminatory at this point, whether it's race or whether it's around elements, but you don't realize that the more discriminatory you guys are in the wrong context, the faster you're going to degrade, and then more children are going to be reproduced and then are at a disadvantage every generation. To then either you kill off a generation or they devolve to such an extent where they're like Neanderthals, where they can't even take care of themselves and they have to go and live out in the forest and go kill their animals for food. Okay, so maybe that's what, so this is like, okay, another I'm giving another reason for vegans and vegetarians to slam the carnivores. You guys are all Neanderthals. You know what? It could be potentially true. Maybe advanced society never, maybe where we're going, we don't ever eat meat. Okay? Maybe the fact that we do eat meat is a sign of the primal Neanderthal in us that hasn't been reversed, the mutation in our genes that have been reversed. The whole thing with the rhesus monkey gene. Okay? The Rh positive and negatives. But you can change your blood type. But here's the thing, you really can't, like, you won't be able to get rid of the antibody per se, because once you get exposed to the rhesus monkey gene, it means you already have the antibody. Now, whether or not it comes up positive on a blood test is based upon the conditions of the test. So when someone was a positive and now they're negative, it means that all the antibodies aren't agglutinating, causing mutations and then behaviors. Okay, because the more that you have antibodies in your body, whether it's THC, whether it's rhesus monkey gene, whether it's, I don't know, an opioid, it alters your behavior. It alters your whole bodies, all your systems. It changes you. Okay? Antibodies change you, especially if they're left, to do their own thing, and then they agglutinate and they turn into other issues. So, so if you play with the right elements, okay, if you're dealing with antibodies in the right context, then you'll keep those well under control, and it won't change your behavior. So I'm thinking, like, with the thing with meat yet again. Man, see, this changes almost everything, but not really. So Neanderthal is a sign of primal, and they were caveman. They went after meat. And so we have people who are vegans, who are not fixing the mutations, playing with cannabis and everything else, and think that, chemistry, they don't even know about chemistry. They're just like worried about the words. And so they're devolving. Because even though, yeah, you may be a vegan right now, this generation, but then the next generation of your children may seem like be vegan, but then they have more mutations. And they may not be vegan. Now they're going to be like, yeah, I'm going to eat meat. I'm going to do this. So maybe the eating of the meat and is already a sign of still Neanderthal inside of them or something. And then eventually those that don't fix the mutations, they will end up in a cave somewhere. It's a theory that's really worth exploring, because again, humanity, I mean, if we didn't have clocks and deadlines and work and all that stuff, we would just live. We would have a continuous life. And if you adhere to the rules, then you would stay alive. But if you violate the laws, then you would die. Simple as that. Okay? Everything is about balance. But if you're already mutated, you're going to have to be discriminatory, and then you can have whatever you want. Now, I ate some chicken last night. It did not taste very good at all. It was just like, did not taste good. And so I'm just like, but it's not to say that I'm not going to go, if I go out to eat in a restaurant, I want to eat a piece of chicken, I will. But it just didn't taste good. So I don't know what's in my future. I'm still working my way to be whatever is 100%. But there's some of you, they're not even close to where I'm at. Yeah, you might be vegan and vegetarian thinking that, yeah, you're more evolved than the rest of us, but not really if you're playing with cannabis. If you're playing with cannabis, you're no different than Monsanto playing with the compound elements to make an herbicide so that way they can grow crops without having to fight and compete with the weeds. And they can't afford to bring in thousands of people to go and pick the weeds around the crops that you guys are looking for, so you can go make your bread and make your modern convenience type of stuff. Okay? So that's why I say that all the politics out there make people hypocritical. And if you're so worried about your symptoms, then you are compartmentalizing your body. You don't understand your body as a whole. And it's no different what the allopathic holistic world do. They look at their body as a compartmentalizing. They don't realize everything is connected. So when you're taking pot for cancer, disease, and chronic illness, and that's it, you're not even doing J juice. You're not even promoting J juice. You're just worried about the pot and how it's like curing cancer. Then you're no different than the allopathic holistic world that is doing the same thing with the same poisons, just manufactured in a different way. And just because Monsanto and Bayer is getting a hold of pot doesn't make it any worse or any better. They're just trying to find a way to regulate it because it's going to be another public health crisis. It already is. Colorado right now is seeing a lot of people who are having issues. The edibles. I remember taking an edible a long time ago, a cookie. Oh my God. It was like a roofie. It really was. I couldn't move for hours. I was at home and I ate a cookie and I was just like an edible, and it was a whole cookie. It wasn't even half a cookie. It was a whole cookie. And I was out. So yeah, we're going to see some people who don't know any better. They're going to be eating the edibles because they're going to be so prevalent. And they're going to see it just like back in the Prohibition days when alcohol first came onto the scene, and you're seeing families disintegrate. You're seeing jobs are being compromised because people can't get to their job. You see people are drunk in the street. You see people high in the street, driving their cars, And so right now, yeah, pot is really, really popular. Oh, it's the next thing, cure to cancer. Chemotherapy was that too. Remember, they're both the same kind of elements. They're still poisons to the body. So yeah, I'm thinking Neanderthal. The Neanderthals is where we're headed towards if we don't fix the mutations and fix our understanding with chemistry. And maybe the New World Order isn't a bad thing. Maybe George Bush wasn't a bad guy after all. George Bush Sr. Okay? Maybe he did get it right. Okay? The rule of law governs the conduct of nations. Do you want to end up like a Neanderthal, having a split society where you have Neanderthals running around killing and raping and doing whatever and killing stuff? Or do you want everybody on the same page, living in a peaceful, beautiful society that can go and travel to different beautiful places without worrying about some crazy Neanderthal trying to steal their stuff? Okay? Anyways. Okay, and then the healing symptoms. All right, so I said I was going to talk about healing symptoms. So for those of you that are doing J juice, right now, if you're not doing J juice and you're in pain, your body is trying to survive. Okay, your body's trying to survive. It's trying to live. And when you're in chronic pain, it means that there's something wrong with your body and it needs to have the right formula, but you don't know what it is. So what do? You take cannabis. What do? You take some kind of anti-inflammatory, turmeric, honey, whatever you name it. It's in the industry, you'll get it. And then your pain may disappear temporarily. Or you may cure a symptom, but then it comes up in another area of your life. So you may have gotten maybe you reversed your autism, but now you have another issue. Okay, now you have leukemia or lupus. So, trading one issue for another really isn't taking care of the problem. So right now, humanity is in pain. The prostaglandin hormone, which is the aids in the healing process, is trying to fix the body, but you keep ignoring it. And so this is why we have so much pain in our society. So even autophagy, just in the matrix, your body is trying to tell you something. It's trying to heal and you're not letting it. Okay? So now you do J juice. J juice says, hey, we're not going to inhibit the pain. We're not going to try to hide it. We're not working with negative elements like cannabis or something else to hide the pain, to inhibit a hormone. No, we're bringing everything to surface, make you deal with it because you got to. You've been sticking your head in the sand for years and centuries. So now you're doing J juice and you have mutations from your predecessors. You inherited from your parents, the natural immunity in mother's milk. Those are all antibodies that will then mutate the child. That's what family history is. Family medical history is the antibodies getting passed from one generation to another, and no one's fixing the mutations because you're going to be exposed to pathogens regardless. You can't prevent pathogens for one, and you can't prevent healing for another. So now you got to figure out how to deal with it. So J juice will then bring up all of your history from the way back when, even whatever it is, it hasn't even come to surface, but you'll deal with past issues. So whatever happened since you've been alive. So it could be, you know, PTSD type stuff. It could be any physical accidents, could be abuse issues. It could be anything that you've ever had to deal with, yeast infections, all that stuff. Health issues from you had a broken leg and now your leg healed, but then when you finally get on J juice, you're going to now feel some soreness in the leg that was broken 20 years ago. So you'll be dealing with past issues. And then you also deal with present issues, what you came into this protocol for, because you're dealing with chronic pain. You don't know why, and you hear that J juice is so wonderful, but then you're realizing, okay, you got to deal with the pain. You can't escape it. So you'll be dealing with your present issues. And sometimes right now you're keeping your psoriasis at bay, right? You're taking all these CBD oils and everything else. Now you do J juice, your psoriasis is going to come out full blown. It'll be spreading. It's not that it's spreading, it's finally coming to surface because your skin is the largest filtration portion of it's the largest organ that filters all the crap, and it filters through your skin and it comes off because you shed your skin all the time. Okay, so that's how pathogens also get taken out of the body, is through your skin. All right, so things will get worse before it gets better. All right, then you have future triggers. When you go get a titer test, so those of you that claim that you're so healthy, no, you're not. You've been exposed to everybody in this society. Some people won't have a major agglutination of the antibodies of the diseases that they were exposed to, so they'll come up negative. But some people will come up positive because they have a lot of antibodies in their body, agglutinating and then shape-shifting into some other disease. So you have now future triggers in your body. Those are when those antibodies agglutinate, and then bam, one day you have an autoimmune disorder, and then you keep taking cannabis. Guess what? You're going to have weakness, and you're going to start seeing things degrade. Okay? So when you take in stuff like cannabis or pills, powder supplements, and detoxes, you are accumulating antibodies, because the three things that kill people: an imbalance of your antibodies, a hormonal imbalance, and a yeast imbalance, cancer. Okay, so when you have so many antibodies in your body, those are the future triggers. And so when you deal with J juice, it's going to go after those antibodies, break them up, and you're going to start feeling pain. You're going to start dealing with things that you didn't think you deal with. Say you have heart palpitations, or you're feeling a headache. You never had dealt with a headache. Well, I've had headaches before, but let's say there's things that you haven't felt before. It's not that J juice is doing it, because J juice is not antibiotic. It's because you already had the mutation, you have the antibodies in your body, and now it's finally getting addressed proactively, so it doesn't come out as a reactive thing, and then it could take you down indefinitely. You could die. Okay, and that's what heart attacks come from, and strokes, and things that people just die instantly. Not that there wasn't red flags. There were red flags, but people ignore them. So that's why death happens. Okay, so when you do J juice right now, excuse me, I blew my nose. So when you do J juice, you figure out what it is that you can handle. And sometimes you may look at, like my husband can only handle a little bit because he has psoriasis and stuff, and it does what it needs to do. You have pain, you'll deal with it, and then you'll drink the drink again. Yeah, it'll come up again, but you got to deal with it until it heals itself. And you will have layers and layers and layers of mutations that you're peeling back. So you're going to have layers and layers and layers of healing that I can't tell you how many layers you have, because I don't know your whole medical history, and I don't know your parents' medical history, and I don't know all of your grandparents' medical history, that whatever you inherited down the line, and all the way back to then the flipping, I don't know when, back to 2,000 years ago. Okay? So it's going to take some time. I'm still seeing, my mutations being, taken care of and reversed and fixed. So I can't tell you exactly what is 100%, but we're looking at seeing a reversal in our issues 200% more than where we were at 2 or 3 years ago. Okay, so if you look at my old videos, you can see a marked difference on how I speak, what I look like, what I say, all of that. Okay, and then you can make it, you can then see the evidence for yourself, how much more you're improving once you understand chemistry. When you simplify everybody, down to their chemical composition, you realize all you are is an element, a compound element. Hey, Chris. Hey, thanks, Julia. Yeah, Julia, we're still peeling back the mutations. So when we simplify everything, we're down to compound elements. That's what's in our body is a compound element. Everything, coffee is a compound element. Cannabis is a compound element. Is it friendly or is it is it a friend or is it a foe? See, that's what you have to understand. Are these elements out there? Are they friends or are they foes? And there's probably more foes than there are friends. Because J juice is the friend. And then everything else out there could be the foe relative to what you bring to the table. That's what it comes down to is what do you bring to the table to then warrant if it's a friend or foe? And then when you finally reverse your mutations, you could eat whatever you want. You could do whatever you want. You could have the world. The world will be at your feet once you fix the mutations. And you're not looping and discriminatory and being all like, ew, I hate Monsanto. Monsanto is nothing horrible. It's the people who are mutated who are demonizing them because they don't know how to take care of their own mutations through no fault of their own. But when you don't know anything, you blame everybody else around you. When you're out of control, you blame everyone around you. And it's obvious. So, yeah, if it's not Monsanto, it's going to be somebody else in the future. So let's say Monsanto gets taken down. Big whoop. We still have GlaxoSmithKline, Pfizer, and they're going to have to deal with all the negative elements that they deal with because you guys asked for it. And then we'll do titer tests, and then we're going to say, you know what? We just got to do J juice. Everybody has to do J juice. Or no, they say this. Every single thing out there has the potential to trigger your cancer. Everything. Even the food that you eat. Will there a day come where we're going to have to put warning labels on soup? This could cause cancer. Even your organic food, this could cause cancer. There will be a day when we have kids that are so mutated that they can't even go outside. And then we're going to put warnings on every single thing out there in the organic aisle and the GMO aisle. Yep, be careful. This could cause cancer because you guys are so freaking mutated. You want to sue the shit out of us for something we didn't do because you guys asked for it. We're not going to put warning labels on everything. Yeah, it's going to kill their marketing, but you know what? Rather than having to deal with lawsuits, I don't know. I mean, will they do that? That might kill their marketing, but we're going down that road. We are. But right now, we're not there yet, but we're heading there. We're heading there. So, yeah, I'm waiting for the day when organic food has a cancer warning on there. Be careful. This organic food could cause cancer. I'm waiting for that day. And then I'll be vindicated. Told you, you guys are all freaking mutated. It's not Monsanto's fault. It's your fault. And then it'll be the cannabis industry next. So the CBD oil salesmen, all those people will be on the chopping block. We're heading that direction. There'll be some litigious person that's going to want to make a buck. They say, oh yeah, this company's doing really well. Wow, their stock prices are amazing. I'm going to do a titer test. And I'm going to go do a class action lawsuit. I'm going to find people that have the same issues. And we're going to go and make some money off this company. There you go. There is your platform for those that want to make some money off of these antibiotic salesmen out there. You have the know-how. You have the understanding that you just trade Monsanto for some other company who deals with negative elements. There you go. And that don't put adequate warnings on everything, not just the Roundup, but everything. Even the people who sell organic food are going to have to put warnings on their labels because somebody is going to eat their organic food and then test the food to see what antibodies are present and then go do a titer test. And right afterwards, they can see. It's going to come to that point if you don't fix your mutations. That even organic food is going to be on the chopping block. It's going to have a warning label. When that day comes, you know you're in trouble. When you see more lawsuits, that's why I'm putting this out there about lawsuits, because that is a barometer of how we can prove in a court of law that this food that has these elements, and you go test it in a food lab, is the direct correlation to then the degradation of this body. So use science to your benefit. Use the law to your benefit. And hold everybody accountable. If they're going to, claim that their stuff is so wonderful, sorry, but maybe you should just get everybody to fix the mutations. There's always going to be a balancing force out there. It may take time because right now with humanity, all of humanity, right now with all this modern science, it's a state of execution. No different than when someone takes a drug that they haven't adapted to. It's a state of execution. But eventually the body adapts. Eventually humanity will adapt and they start degrading. And then they cannot escape the laws, violating the laws of the body. And then humanity will then mutate into a Neanderthal and then eventually go extinct. But there's always going to be some person that's going to be smarter because modern humans, the Homo sapiens, were cohabitating with the Neanderthals. So somehow they were able to coexist in some way. And then the Neanderthals then went extinct, or they mixed in with the population, and then that mutation, those antibodies, didn't agglutinate. See, that's something. That's probably what the Rh positive is. It's probably the Neanderthal in us. Because I know I looked Neanderthal like a couple years ago. The way my face was changing. All right. Have a great day. Go to jillyjuice.com, JILLYJUICE.com, and get the book. Or go to Amazon, or go to iBooks, or whatever. Do the protocol. You know, that's the formula to life. It's not plain in the negative. There's probably more negative elements, more negative compound elements than there are positive. And I'm so happy that Julie has been on this for 2 years. And yeah, she's still, going through certain healing, but it's not as aggressive as it was back then. Okay, and she'll stay on it. Krista McGinn, all you guys. Okay, you guys just stay on it. There's no reason to get off the J juice. And I've actually, if you ferment it longer than the 3 days, like I had mine for like 6 months, it tastes so different. It tastes like pickle juice, like olive pickle juice, fizzy, savory. It's really, really good. Okay, so you can't go wrong with J juice. You cannot go wrong. It's not an antibiotic, it's a probiotic. And it's well worth you getting away from your cannabis and start promoting life, not death. It's time to stop being hypocritical and hating Monsanto when you're peddling the same shit that he's peddling. But he's not saying that this is going to cure your cancer. Oh no, he's saying, hey, this is going to cause your cancer. This is not cause it, but this is going to potentially be poisonous. Okay? So at least Monsanto's honest. All of you guys that are selling cannabis are not very honest because you don't know your chemistry. So I think Monsanto has a lot more ethics than the organic industry. Talk to you later. Bye.